This is Write What You Know, the storytelling program on Bizz 99.9 FM Substitute Radio. I'm your host, Geoff Walker. Welcome and thank you for joining me. Today we will be reciting a short story called Psychosis of the Heart. Enjoy the story. I just want to know the truth, she said, her voice cold, calm and dim. My enemies know secrets about me that I've only ever told you about. Tell me why that is. I don't know what you're talking about, I reply in a dry, deadpan tone, trying to match her mood and register. I haven't spoken to your enemies, and I never have, so I haven't told them anything about you. Your secrets have always been safe with me. Look, she growled, clearly displeased with my intransigence, raising her hand up to give me the open palm stop sign. I won't be mad at you. I know you've been spreading my secrets around, talking to my enemies, letting them know about my business behind my back. I just need to know the whole truth of what you've done, so just admit it. I stuttered, unable to think of the right thing to say, half starting my sentence 2 or 3 times over. After a few seconds, I eventually blurt out, in an angry spit, I haven't done anything wrong. I haven't told anyone any of your secrets. I've never spoken to your enemies. What exactly are you accusing me of? We then had 5 seconds of silence. She kept switching between looking up at the ceiling and down at the floor. She was very pissed, her cheeks and lips tightening. It was as if she was contemplating to herself whether to scream directly at me or just storm off. She had positioned her body to do either of those 2 things at a moment's notice. Eventually she spoke, giving me a generic, cliché-ridden, borderline insulting breakup speech. It was a calm, fast and stern voice, such that I couldn't have interrupted her had I have wanted to. With the clarity of word selection, as if she was reading from a pre-prepared script. I'm sorry to do this to you, but I have to let you go. I hope you understand. I just need to protect myself. Thank you so much for all your help, support and kindness. I hope there is no ill will between us. I will always speak well of you and have your back, even if you don't have mine. Take care. She then promptly turned around, picked up her coat, placed her bag around her shoulder, and walked out. And with that unsatisfying and awkward finale, leaving me with more feelings of confusion and incompleteness than regret and anger, our relationship of almost 12 months had come to an end. It's now been 2 months since that night, and we haven't spoken to each other since. That is, apart from the one text message she sent me the morning after. If I have hurt you in any way, I'm sorry. It wasn't my intention. Please forgive me and good luck. To which I didn't send a reply. And so, with the bitter aftertaste of irony and despondency and unreconciled frustration, our relationship had come to an end. As it turns out, in almost the exact same manner that it had begun. Rewinding back to our very first date, our first opportunity to spend time together alone, one of the first questions she ever asked me was, have you ever had enemies who try to look you up, spread rumors about you, get everyone to hate you, and make you an outcast in your own town? No, that's never happened to me, I replied. I was uneased and perplexed by the question, but with it being a first date and me wanting to make a good impression upon her, I didn't try to contradict her or change the subject or otherwise be dismissive of her concerns. So instead, I asked her a follow-up question. Who are these enemies of yours? They're evil people. They're so horrible and nasty and bitter. She then turned around, as if to check that we weren't being followed, or perhaps to make sure that what she was about to say wouldn't be overheard by anyone. They keep telling these fake stories about me. The rumours spread around from one person to the next, and before long everyone's talking about me. Then the whole town knows about my private business. My enemies won't rest until everyone in the world hates me. I've lost all my friends from high school. I lost my job as an office secretary. I lost my position in the community choir. I lost connection with most of my family. They've ruined so much of my life, and I need to protect myself from them. I need to stay safe from their lies and slander. But I won't give up on my dreams, like they're trying to get me to do. I won't surrender to their evil intentions. Why would they do that to you? I asked, suspending my disbelief for the time being and displaying as much genuine concern for her as I could. Because they're jealous of me. Because I've been so successful, and they're just a bunch of pathetic do-nothing losers, she instantly answered. I used to be a great singer. Everyone enjoyed listening to me sing. I got into all sorts of choirs and theatre groups, and was offered to be the lead singer in a popular rock band, and one year I got to travel around Europe performing opera. My enemies couldn't match my singing talent or willingness to work hard. So they found a way to ruin my career with rumours and hatred, and they pulled me down to their level. At that moment she broke down into a sobbing, crying mess, tears rolling down her cheeks, her lips convulsing wildly, which made her words incoherent, her hands shaking. I tried to calm her down by hugging her and buying her a coffee, and we sat on a park bench for a good half an hour until she calmed herself down. From that first date, we kept seeing each other on a steady, regular, effectively though not officially exclusive basis, generally having one date per week on the Saturday afternoon. Whenever she spoke to me about her enemies and these various ways they sought to harm or humiliate her, she always kept the details vague and general, never actually naming who these people were or detailing exactly what they did to her. I would sometimes inquire into this, trying to coax out some more concrete and specific information, so that I might be able to rationally make sense of this whole affair by taking note of the facts of the matter. But she never specified herself. Some of her stories sounded very simple, logical, and understandable, and I instantly believed them to be true. Others sounded so fantastical and absurd that I was sure that they were nothing more than delusions from her own imagination. But without possessing any actual evidence, I had no way of discriminating any single story one way or another. So I had no choice but to skeptically but reasonably believe everything she was telling me. At the time when this was first happening, these weird conversations about her enemies and their wicked spreading of these rumours about her could easily be passed off as just a strange, eccentric little quirk in her personality. It was like having a big, open, beautiful house with an annoying, squeaky front door, something small and petty that could be more or less safely tolerated and ignored without concern. For you see, overwhelmingly the first 3 or 4 months we dated were very enjoyable times. It was only later that that squeaky front door slowly grew into an unbearable and infuriating burden, driving an insurmountable wedge between the two of us. In these early times, what most attracted me to her, that made me want to see her again and again, for week after week, and really get to know her on a deeply intimate basis, was her all-round passion and vigour, a deep, rich, complicated fire inside of her. On our dates, We would have these long conversations about life, the music industry, the status of women in society, intrusive parents, the history of humanity, our goals and hopes and fears for the future. These talks were always colourful, fascinating and thought-provoking, intellectually exciting and morally challenging, and they would go on for hours at a time. Eventually, one of us would check what the time was, to the sudden realization that we'd been talking to each other for 7 straight hours. The date had gone on for way longer than was originally planned, and we had to part ways because nighttime was approaching. Being with her was so intoxicating and wonderful that it seemed like we were being transported into a realm outside of normal time and space. At the time when we first started dating, she was trying to rebuild her music career after what had ended up being a 3-year hiatus. She was performing regularly on public radio, busking on street corners, and attending open mic nights in pubs and clubs around the local area. When she was a teenager, she had been taught as a classical opera singer, as a soprano. Then, as an adult, she had taught herself how to play the folk guitar. Now, her performance style tended to be a unique mixture of these two forms, creating a kind of upbeat alternative country folk with slow operatic ballad solos. Having spent her entire life listening to and performing music, she had incredible musical instincts, know-how, and work ethic. Something that to this day I find incredible. She was able to create a whole new song in a single day of work. Write the lyrics in the morning, work out the music in the afternoon, practice a few times in the evening, and perform it in front of an open mic audience that night. Everything music-related seemed to come so easily for her, as if by second nature, as if tempo and notes and tunes were the very matter that made up her physical being. As a tone-deaf wordsmith myself, I found her so fascinating and strange and delightful to be around. I remember at the time being absolutely mesmerized by her spirit and life energy, which her physical body struggled to contain. On our dates, she was always filled with this great urgent restlessness and impatience, constantly wanting to see and do new things around the city, to experience the world, participate within it, and leave her mark upon it, all with such determination and motion and love and yearning. Her buoyancy and drive was infectious, as I felt myself being hypnotized by her aura and goodwill. When it came to her music work and output, she was desperately committed to making her contribution to the world through creating lots of terrific, passionate, stunning, unorthodox, meaningful music. All in all, she seemed to be everything I was looking for in a partner, which is why I kept seeing her week after week, date after date, with the eventual goal in mind of making her my girlfriend. But then things started to go terribly wrong in both her personal and professional life. Her landlord pulled a couple of sneaky legal tricks and issued her with an eviction notice some 3 months before the lease was supposed to run out, forcing her to urgently look for a new place to live. She and her mum got into a ferocious argument that ended in a violent scuffle. Someone had to go to the hospital to get stitches, resulting in a bitter and embarrassing court case that stretched on for many weeks. Her little sister was playing around with her guitar one day and accidentally broke some of the strings, but getting it repaired was beyond her price range during this tight financial period of her life. With these setbacks happening one after another over the course of about a month, her entire lifestyle and outlook on the world had been thrown into a wild, unpredictable tornado. In an act of desperation, she put a hiatus on all her public musical performances, at least until she got her guitar repaired. But then she stopped doing her daily singing practice lessons, complaining that she had lost her passion for music. She would occasionally try to sing a few bars, but didn't have the mental strength needed to hold a note for more than 5 seconds. No longer full of energy and buoyancy, now she just looked depressed and hopeless, struggling to make sense of the world around her, caught in a whirlwind of primitive stimuli and impulses. She seemed more interested in the flashing lights of a city nightclub than the flow of notes in a bar of music. The very same raw emotions which had made her life so powerful and beautiful and fascinating were now dragging her down into a pit of darkness, nightmares, and despair. She became obsessed with her physical appearance. I would always find her in the bathroom, staring at herself in the full-length mirror, checking every wrinkle or mark on her face, and decrying how fat and old and ugly she was becoming. She would search through her wardrobe, trying to find anything to wear that didn't make her look like a slut, or a prude, or a mum, or a grandmother, or a schoolgirl, or a man, or an auntie. The quality of the conversations we would have together quickly retarded and degraded into a frustrating, foggy, sticky, unpleasant mess. The scope of topics we would talk about narrowed to just 2 or 3. The depth of investigation became shallower, where anything beyond surface appearance was too complicated to get into. And the intellectual curiosity that made up such a core feature of her personality evaporated into a robotic, senseless repetition of banal truisms. Over and over and over again, she would keep asking me the same kinds of questions. What does it mean when a guy calls you easy? I've been called that before by lots of older men. Why would someone say I look like a mum? The other day I was at the supermarket and some old man said that I had a haircut like a mum. What does that mean? Do you think I'm too short to be attractive? I keep hearing people say that only tall women can be truly beautiful. Why do men always think it's okay to call a woman a slut? I'm not a slut. Why are they even talking about that? Is this dress okay for me to wear? Do you think I'm pretty enough to wear it? I'm not so sure. Mind you, she already knew where all these horrible rumours and slanders about her were coming from. It's my enemies, she sobbed, gritting her teeth, her bottom lip shaking. She started scratching at her forearm, as if trying to burst a pimple. They keep spreading these stories about me. None of them are true. They're all lies. Everywhere I go, I keep hearing these horrible things being said about me. Everyone seems to know my business, but none of it is true. Why do they care what I do in my private life? Her eyes welled with tears, and I quickly hugged her to calm her down. At first, when these questions were unexpected and novel to me, I would try to answer them directly and wholeheartedly and comprehensively, reassuring her that these claims about her weren't true, that everything was fine, and that she should stop worrying about them so much. On so many occasions I reminded her how talented she was, how intelligent she was, how beautiful she was, how warm-hearted and kind and amazing she was. But nothing I said seemed to make any difference about her, thinking about herself, her life, and the world around her. Our dates were no longer fun, exciting, spontaneous, or adventurous, but now would always follow a very boring, predictable pattern. Repetitious question from her, followed by repetitious answer from me. Rinse and repeat. For a while I tolerated this unpleasant situation, was willing to pull up my cuffs and wade through the mud, but eventually my patience wore down, and it all became so awful and painful and unbearable. Rather than look forward to the approaching weekends, I came to dread them. She would keep asking me these same questions over and over again, causing me to become frustrated and bored, lose interest in what she was specifically saying, and start daydreaming. With me not properly engaged with what she was trying to say, she would get upset with me, and would then say a few choice words that made clear her dissatisfaction with my behaviour towards her. I would get defensive and start criticising her for her faults and foibles and problems. By then, our date had descended into a petty, bitter, pointless argument. When all was said and done, our relationship had become one filled with anger, spite, grudges, and hostility. One time I walked in on her in the kitchen as she was grasping her head with both her hands, swaying back and forth, screaming into the wall. "Shut up! Just shut up!" she cried. "Stop lying about me! Stop telling these stories! Just leave me alone! Please go away! Just fuck off! Go away!" There was nothing I could do to help her, to rescue her from the torture that she was going through, or even to just lessen the severity. I was powerless compared with the forces at work inside her head, driving her into this manic state. No matter how many times I tried to reassure her that there were no enemies or neighbours or bad people outside the house yelling abusive things at her, that her brain was playing tricks on her, causing her to imagine these things, she wouldn't calm down and return back to her normal self. Whenever we hugged, I would feel her pull tightly onto me and snuggle herself as deep as she could into my embrace. The only comparison that I could think of for such behaviour is like when a young child or animal is utterly terrified of something, like a loud thunderstorm, and they dive into your body for complete, total, unquestioned security. It was as if she had lost all ability to see herself properly as a self-determining, independent, healthy, adult woman, and was just slowly descending into the mind of a child. Our sex life underwent a similar dreadful retreat. Beforehand, we were quite active in the bedroom. She used to make love to me with such urgency, dedication, and friendly respect. Nothing filled my heart with more warmth than to watch and listen to her experience sexual pleasure. Whenever she orgasmed, my heart sang with such joy and wonder and solace. But after her life was turned upside down and all the hardships began, we more or less stopped having sex altogether. She complained of having lost her sex drive, emotional capacity for lust, physical attraction to me, and ability to orgasm. Throughout these long and tedious conversations, the thought would constantly cross my mind that maybe this relationship wasn't worth the effort to maintain and prolong. It was going nowhere, causing more harm than good, and was a huge waste of my time, energy, and money. Maybe it would be better to call things off now and move on with my life. But I decided not to do that. I kept seeing her week after week throughout this long, troubling period. I didn't decide to do this out of some patronizing pity I felt for her, like one feels when adopting an animal from a shelter. Rather, I believed that if I kept the faith, helped her through this journey, gave her a warm body to embrace during the cold nights, then eventually she would rediscover her life and return to her old self, the woman I had fallen for all those months ago. When the breakup finally happened, with I myself the one being accused of aiding her enemies and spreading false rumours about her, I felt no regret or sadness for the loss, but instead a kind of relief and release from the burden. I felt relaxed, calm and happy, having escaped from that world that I had come to find so miserable and distasteful. Welcome back. That was the short story Psychosis of the Heart. I'm Geoff Walker, and you've been listening to Write What You Know on Bizz 99.9 FM. Substitute Radio. Please join me again next time for more short stories, poetry, and novel extracts. Till we meet again, take care and happy writing.